Hi guys, it's Owen here from D20. I'm busy testing out this new setup for a streaming configuration. I'm hoping that this is working and that you guys are hearing me. If this doesn't work out, I'm just going to delete this video. We'll see what happens. I'm just going to click around these options a little bit and see what's going on, see if I can figure out what's going on. Okay, alright. Looks like we're live. I'm gonna just assume that it's working. Just for the sake of this little test stream, I wanted to go through something which I thought was kind of cool. A little bit of history, little bit of background. 10, 11 years ago, when I was getting ready to get married, at the time I still am an atheist. I was an atheist then too, and my ex-wife, my soon-to-be wife, was also kind of sort of an atheist. When we were choosing the person who was going to be performing the ceremony, we wanted to have a secular ceremony. We like the idea of sort of a traditional sort of Western European traditional wedding, but we wanted without any of the Jesus stuff. We didn't want God to be invoked at all in the ceremony. So I did some research into how all of that worked, and I assumed that it would be relatively easy to find something resembling a secular celebrant, somebody who could perform the ceremony who wasn't affiliated with any kind of church. And it turns out that under South African law, at least at the time, that wasn't really possible. There were two ways of getting married. You could either do it through the clergy, you could get a minister or an imam or a rabbi or some equivalent of that, or one of the recognized religions by the South African government, one of their clergy people to come and perform the ceremony under the auspices of their church. The other option is you could go to a magistrate and have it done in court. And there's sort of a hybrid approach that some people were doing, where they would just have some friend of theirs perform sort of a ceremonial wedding, and then they would go to court a few days later and then do the paperwork there. And we decided we didn't like that third sort of hybrid approach. It was kind of messy. We wanted it all to be done at one time. So we ended up finding a guy, a minister who was, although he was still a practicing minister, he was prepared to, for an extra fee, do sort of a secular kind of wedding, and at least in theory leave God out of the ceremony, not mention God, not mention Jesus or anything like that. Once we got to the day, he actually totally did talk about God and Jesus in the ceremony. So although we didn't fight him for our money back, I wasn't exactly all that pleased about it, because I didn't feel like the ceremony represented who I was. And it kind of annoyed me, and it still has annoyed me up until now, that it hasn't really been possible for a secular person to have their marriage officiated in a completely secular way without appealing to the church or going through the church. Now, I know there are a lot of people who are former ministers, people who attained their necessary clergy qualifications and have since become apostate and they've left the church, but because they still have that qualification, they can still perform marriage ceremonies, and there are a few people around who are able to provide those sorts of services. It occurred to me that it might be something worth pursuing for me to go through the process of becoming a marriage officer. So I looked into that, and it turned out, as it happens, it wasn't really possible, even though the law had changed. A few years ago, I don't remember the dates now, I'd have to look them up again. The law had changed so that in theory it was possible for a secular celebrant to become a marriage officer. The processes hadn't been established. Like there was no form you could go and fill in at Home Affairs. There was no course you could take. There was no way for an unaffiliated secular celebrant to go through the process and become a marriage officer. That is until yesterday, when I received a fascinating email from the South African Secular Society. Now, the SASS are not an organization I've had any kind of official affiliation with up until now. I've been sort of watching their activity with interest, but I haven't involved myself in any of the stuff that they've been doing. I think I went to one of their meetups a couple of years ago, which was nice. They seemed like nice people, but I haven't involved myself in anything that they've been doing. But I got on their mailing list, so I've been kept up to date on what's been going on. And they sent out this press release yesterday, I think it was, or the day before. I thought it'd be fun to just go through that press release, and you can see why I might be interested in it. Let's do that. Sorry, I'm getting the hang of this new software. It's It's all cool and whatnot, but I'm not really clear on how it all works. All right, let's go through the article. Right, so the bullet points at the top. Eligible individuals can now apply to the Department of Home Affairs to become legally certified marriage officers with the South African Secular Society. SASS now provides an openly secular avenue for couples. Heterosexual and same-sex couples can now be married under the Civil Union Act by the SASS-endorsed marriage officers. And then they go on to say, we, the South Africa Secular Society, as a recognized non-profit organization, recently received approval from the Department of Home Affairs, whereby marriage officers can be legally certified under the banner of the South African Secular Society. With the support of our members, SASS application to the Department of Home Affairs was successful, and we can now recommend eligible members to the Department of Home Affairs to become legally certified marriage officers. So in effect what this is under the old law in South Africa, you needed to be a member of one of the recognized churches. There was a list of churches that were recognized by the state, and clergy of those churches could become registered as marriage officers. Although they changed the wording of the law back in, I don't remember where it was, 2011, 2010, somewhere around there, to allow secular marriage officers. That system of having that list of approved churches didn't go away. That was still the way that these things were regulated. And what the South African Secular Society have now succeeded in doing is they've managed to get their name on that list. So if you want to become a marriage officer, a secular celebrant, you can do so through the South African Secular Society. I'm not going to go through the rest of it. You get the gist of it. Basically, as a registered celebrant of the SASS, you can now perform weddings in South Africa. Obviously, you have to go through the process. Apparently, there's still an exam that you have to take through the Department of Home Affairs in order to get it. But the SASS will sanction that application for you if you're a member of the Secular Society. So, as I mentioned, this is something that I've wanted to do for several years. I always thought it would be cool to be able to do ship weddings. You know, I'm a Starship Commanding Officer, and it seemed only appropriate that I'd be able to perform weddings like any other Starship Commanding Officer would be able to do. So I'm going to be looking into going through this process. I understand that first I have to become a member of the South African Secular Society, and there's a membership fee that I'll have to pay. I think it's $100 a month or something like that. It's not the end of the world. And then once I've got that set up, then the SASS will assist me in attaining that marriage officer certification. And once all that's sorted out, which apparently takes about 6 months, I will be able to start offering wedding services. So if you are in the Cape Town area and you are interested in having me perform your wedding, either as myself or as a Starfleet Admiral, I could come along in my uniform, or even if you want me to do it as Marvel's Hercules or Aquaman or Khal Drogo or something like that, I'll be able to do something like that. But between now and then, I'll be able to work out a pricing structure for all those services and figure out how all of that kind of stuff works. But it's very exciting. I'm looking forward to being able to perform marriage services. I'll make a video at some point about my opinions on marriage. They're complicated, but effectively I think it's my opinion and my belief that if marriage is something that makes sense to you, and if it's the thing that you want to do with your life, then you should be able to have that ceremony performed in any way that you want, in the way that you want. And I would love to be a part of doing that for you and to help you do that. So if you're in the Cape Town area, I would love to be able to officiate at your wedding, maybe in a year's time or so. Or even if you're outside of the Cape Town area, if you're prepared to help me with travel costs and whatnot, I could probably fly around the country and help you with it in various other places too. That could be a lot of fun. I think that could be really cool, and I'm looking forward to getting all of that sorted out. Hopefully this stream has actually worked and that this is going to become a video on my channel that I'll be able to share later. We'll see what happens. If not, then I'm kind of talking into the void. Then, alright then, that's it for now. Swat out.